Thanks everyone for joining our presentation today. Just to give folks a preview of what's going on with Semgrep at RSA. We hope to meet many of you there. And if you can't make it to RSA, no worries. You'll get at least some of the flavor of what's going to be going on there through this presentation today. Unfortunately, not all. There's some goodies that we're going to give away, and you'll get a preview of that here. But if you aren't able to make it to RSA, thank you so much for joining us today.
For sure, for sure. All of the RSA flavor, but none of the calories. It's guilt-free.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Okay, so just a quick introduction for your humble servants. Randall, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Randall. I've got the pleasure of being one of your hosts today. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm on the account management team. I'm what they call a people person. Been here for a few years. Now, we were talking about time warps earlier today, I guess just a couple of minutes ago. And I'm coming up on 3 years here. So pleasure to be here. Pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you, Randall. And hi, everyone. I'm Pablo. I've been with Semgrep for a few more years than Randall. There's also very much a stretching of time when one is at a growth stage company. I noticed that Randall listed that he can't stand noise, and I then realized that I have several white noise machines, and actually there is a relevance to that when we get later on into the vibe coding part of the presentation. But yes, it is true. I have several white noise machines, some software, some hardware. So thanks everyone for joining. So today we'd love to just give you a preview of what's going on at RSA. We'd love to meet any of you who will be attending, and we'll give you some ideas of how you can meet us and where you can meet us. And then we'd like to show off what we're going to be showing off at RSA. And in particular, we're going to be focusing on a few things around low noise, automation, and we'll get to vibe coding, which is definitely a hot topic of late, and how that can be done securely. We probably will have some time at the end for Q&A, but honestly, if you have any questions throughout, please just enter them into the chat. Randall and I will be looking at the chat. We have some other Semgrep folks as well, also monitoring. So at any time, we can deviate a little from the presentation. That's fine, and the demo, that's totally fine, and it keeps it interactive and hopefully as valuable as possible for you as well.
Pablo, first, before we get to RSA, could we hit that next slide? And we've got a very
what did you do,
special
Randall?
treat.
Okay.
So, as you might have seen in my bio, I'm a lover of hot sauce. And we're going to be giving away a set today of Semgrep branded hot sauces at the end of our chat. Now, we partnered with a small but mighty sauce maker in Michigan to bring two of my great passions together, hot sauce and swag. Now, I've been sending these to customers for the past few months, and we've gotten nothing but rave reviews. And this is one of the last sets from the first batch. So it's very limited, very special. And after our tech talk, we'll have a trivia question for you. Something Semgrep related, for which the answer will be given shortly. So the first one to get it correct in the chat gets it. Now, I guess we could talk a little bit about Semgrep.
Yeah.
Who we are.
Before we go there, Randall, does that say private selection on the label?
It sure does. It sure does.
So it is a special batch.
It's one of those things. Everybody has Yetis. Everybody has shirts for swag. But I know that there's a big overlap between the hot sauce loving community and AppSec folks. And I can talk a little bit about the flavors here. Now, we've got low severity, which is a jalapeno-based sauce. Medium severity, which is pineapple and habanero, my personal favorite and kind of the reason that I chose this sauce maker to work with. And high severity, which is ghost pepper. Now, my wife has got no spice tolerance at all, and I don't want to poison our customers and fans. So I had her test all of these, and she's still with us, so things are great. And we're really kind of hoping to get the hot sassed hashtag up and running, because if we do, then my boss will give me more budget to do this next year and just keep it rolling. So, yeah.
Yeah, sounds great. I think AppSec and hot sauce, what do they have in common? Sweating, probably, at some point. But
yeah,
thank you for
indigestion.
offering this. Yeah. Okay. let's give everyone a brief bit of background about Semgrep, just in case you're not super familiar with us. We are building AI AppSec, which is built on top of the most popular SAST, and that includes a complete platform for SAST, SCA, and secrets detection. We're going to talk all about the platform throughout the presentation. I do want to point out that we have some fantastic customers that we partner with, and we are backed by some top-tier investors. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list of customers, but if you would like to talk to one of our customers and get a little bit of understanding from them about their experience with SemGrip, we can definitely put you in touch with folks.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to go a little more in depth into why we do what we do. Years ago, we started off just taking feedback from the community, the open source community, on what they didn't like about the tools that were out there. Tools were unfriendly, they weren't customizable, they were slow, they were expensive, loud, maybe not stylish enough, and definitely not transparent in what they were doing and the results that they were spitting out. So we took all of that to heart and we really wanted to build something better. So over the past few years, we've really been fortunate to make a lot of friends in the industry, a lot of fans. We help to protect a lot of great organizations, and our open source engine now powers over 10 million scans per month. So
Indeed,
yeah,
yeah, very, very grateful for the community support, for that and along the way. And I've been with the company since before that we had SemGrep open source, and it's been fantastic to see the support from folks for sure.
big time.
Okay, what's going on at RSA? So a lot of what we'll show at the booth will be demos, and so we're going to show you these demos today during this presentation. We'll focus on some of the AI capabilities, reachability for reducing noise, upgrade guidance to help developers resolve and remediate issues, and then vibe coding through SemGrep MCP in Cursor. But of course, at the booth, if you're able to stop by, we can go into as much detail as you need, or if you want to check out some of the other things that we have on offer, we're happy to go into that and really customize a demo for you and answer any questions that you have. This is more or less the run of show for today. But again, if you have any questions or feedback on what you'd like to see, just let us know and we can jump around. So that's a big part of what's going on at the booth. But Randall, what else is going on?
Did we mention that there will be swag? Because there will be. So
Yes.
bring a hat down and grab a Semgrep patch for it. Because as Gandalf said, you shall not pass up our swag.
Okay. Yeah.
Couldn't help it.
Those are some of the patches that you can add to the hats. We will have the hats there too, in case you don't have a hat. Um, so no need to bring a blank hat or kind of like replace the emblem on your current hat. I happen to put my favorite there in large size SAST Pro Shops, but other people are partial to the ACDC style or Budweiser style.
I wish my head were a little smaller so I'd have more hat options. I have like two hats that fit properly, and I don't know if they were meant for humans.
Okay.
But for those
Um,
of you like me, uh, also from 1 to 2 p.m. on April 29th, Pablo, if you could hit that slide, please.
yeah. Yep.
Our resident rock star, Tanya Janka, will be signing and giving away copies of her latest book, Alice and Bob Learn Secure Coding. So, once again, really makes me wish I knew how to read. But for those of you that do, it's a big deal.
Yeah, you'll get to meet Tanya. She'll be at RSA and of course signing and giving away the books during that time that Randall mentioned. And if you can't catch her at that time, there's kind of other events that she'll be at as well. So thank you to Tanya for in advance for doing that. Hope you all get to meet her and us there. And
Finally,
yeah, go ahead, Randall.
our tools and swag are great, but we'd be nothing without our team. So come on down and say hi to some real live SemGreppers and one paid actor. Which one is the actor? We'll never tell. Come and ask questions, give us high fives, maybe sign up for a private demo, like Pablo mentioned, and whatever you need, we're here for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a friendly bunch. And then there's, it's a busy week. It's not necessarily. It can be kind of exhausting to go through all the sessions, and Moscone Expo is huge. I'll point out where we are in a second. And feel free to come, take a break with us if you like, and whether it's at the booth or one of the other events that we have. Randall, how would we find Semgrep among this maze?
Pablo, that's a fantastic question. So in the Moscone South Expo Hall, we'll be at booth 2051 and meeting room 204. Now, on the next slide, I have been told that this year RSA will be introducing mythical creatures to keep guests on their toes. A Minotaur is going to be doing sweeps every 15 minutes to make sure no one's blocking the mandatory aisles. And the Grimace will be there being, well, whatever Grimace is. So have no fear. You'll be safe at booth 2051, 2051, and meeting room 204.
2051. Yeah, so this is the South Hall of Moscone. So as you enter, kind of towards the right side, almost far right, and maybe two-thirds of the way back, uh, I'm sure it'll be lots of bright flashing lights. And but you will find us and look for folks, who are dressed in shirts that are kind of like that. It's a little bit easier to spot as well. We may be roaming around. If you see us roaming around in other parts, feel free to stop us and say like, "Hey, I'm a Semgrep fan," just or something like that, or can you lead me to the Semgrep booth, and we'll be happy to escort you there.
If we're also lost, maybe you can help us get there. That's 2051.
Great. Um, yeah, is this Grimace at playing baseball with the Mets mascot, whose name is Mr. Met and Mrs. Met, I believe.
Oh, I'm not sure exactly what the Grimace is doing there. I know that the Grimace isn't great at sports,
Okay.
so maybe misequipped for something else, maybe playing football. It's hard to catch with those fingers.
Yeah, that's true. Well, hence the glove. Okay.
I guess
Okay.
now it's time to get technical and talk
All
about what's
right.
happening here at SemGrep.
Yeah.
So let's start with SemGrep code. Pablo, what is SemGrep code and what's so cool about it?
Yeah, so SemGrep code for folks who are not familiar with is our SAST solution, so static analysis solution. But I'd say what's cool about it and what makes it different is that it's really the only solution on the market where developers fix the majority of issues that they see. And that's in part, our philosophy with respect to what developers see. It's in part due to some of the AI technology that we'll show you. But really, what we're trying to do is help teams move security forward by identifying the the issues that really matter and enabling developers to fix them so that security can accelerate development instead of slowing it down. That's kind of the nutshell, I'd say. But of course, you all might be wondering, well, what do you mean? Or how do you do that? So I'd love to show you a bit of that. That's how I'd
Please
answer it,
do.
Randall. I don't know. Is that what you're looking for?
It's a great answer for me. We'll run it by the Grimace when we see him.
Okay. 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 I'm going to switch tabs. Can you see this tab? I believe you can. The new tab,
Yes.
number code. Okay. So this is to give you an overview. This is the Semgrep AppSec platform. And the Semgrep AppSec platform is built on the world's most popular SAST, which is the open source engine that we mentioned earlier. Now, like many security solutions out there, you can go in and start to look at all your security findings, right? And over here on the left side, you'll see we have different pages for first party scanning with Semgrep code, for secrets detection, or our software composition analysis solution, Semgrep supply chain. We'll get to that a little bit later, but you probably can already see this here. Over 31,000 findings. And this is pretty typical of customers that we work with. Customers that we work with typically have years and years of developing software. There's legacy code. Oftentimes there's acquisitions. And so code that has been brought in from other groups, with varying ages and perhaps quality and security. And then security is in charge is responsible for the security of all that code. And like many tools, well, we can take this raw list of issues and then filter down. Let's say we want to look at only the ones with critical severity, very high sweat factor and high confidence. So now we go from 31,000 down to 138 That's a that's a pretty good improvement, but it's still a lot, and it can be, still pretty high or higher than that. And this is where things get really interesting with applying our AI technology on top of our deterministic and semantic code scanning engine, which is really the foundation of Semgrep. And we can use AI through Semgrep Assistant in a few ways. One is like maybe we want to look at this and first look at what's really important. And what do we mean by important? Well, uh, SemGrep Assistant can actually look at where these findings are showing up and where in the code they are actually applied. So in some cases, we may have test scripts or developer scripts that may not even make it to production. So those we can consider as low risk and aren't necessarily worth a lot of our time or attention, and certainly not for developers as well. Conversely, we can look at high risk issues, things that touch authentication, authorization, payments, PII, et cetera. And in that way, really look at the things that are potentially going to have a pretty big impact. And oops, sorry about that. And by doing that, we can filter down the list from 31,000 to a couple hundred to, we should see about 10 or 20 or so. And maybe I'll have to refresh. I'm not sure why this is not loading right now. I'll just refresh quickly. And when we get from a list of 31,000 down to a dozen or 2 dozen, then that's really a list that we can actually tackle and make progress on, and maybe even knock out, say in a week or 2 weeks, or maybe through a sprint. And this makes the challenge that all AppSec teams face around the volume of issues. It makes it a lot more tractable. So here we go. We have 5 matching issues. So another a bunch of them from NoSQL injection and a generic kind of SQL injection. So actually kind of similar issues. And now we can look into these and actually dispatch them potentially to developers. Um, that's great, and that allows us to look at like what is most important. SemGrep Assistant can also look at what are true positives. So, well, what is this? Well, all SaaS tools are basically using some kind of pattern matching to determine what is a finding and what is not. And SemRep Assistant goes beyond that by looking at additional context in code. So not only at the kind of like what is low risk, what is high risk, kind of like categories of code that we showed before through this other filter, but also context such as maybe there is kind of an extra step in sanitization that is being applied that is not directly in the exact line or lines of code that were matched, but maybe they're in other parts of the file or maybe other files, or there's different contexts like maybe there's a service that is just trusted and or maybe it's internal, and so it's not considered to be a high risk thing that we need to address. So now we went from 31,000 down to two issues. So that's a way that teams can really kind of tackle and make progress on their vulnerability backlog and really address the issues that matter.
Could I ask a question here, Pablo?
Sure, yeah.
I think this all sounds great, but what if teams don't have the time to run through the repetitive triage grind?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great question. That's another way that Assistant really helps save teams time. And so, when I went through this filter, I just looked at the true positive, but the false positive kind of case is another one that's interesting to look at. So let me just go to this other tab here. If we look at all the false positives that SemGrep Assistant has identified, we can see 645 matching findings. And notice that they have this kind of filtered icon on them. And this means that these issues have been filtered from being shown to developers. So they weren't shown to developers in, for example, a pull request comment or merge request conversation. And that's going to save time for developers, and it's also going to save time for AppSec teams because they don't have to deal with these, false positives. Now, you might be wondering, well, okay, well, who decides if this is a false positive, or kind of how good is this at recognizing it? And it turns out that users and our security research team agree with this determination, Semgrep Assistant's determination of what is a false positive, 95% of the time. And we've tested this and benchmarked this over thousands and thousands of findings across many, many customers and deployments. So we have pretty high confidence that Semgrep Assistant is going to filter out the false positives so people don't have to think about them. And then in terms of like the repetitive nature of this kind of task and how this can take you a step further, I'd love to show you assistant memories. Maybe that's what you had in mind, Randall. I'm not sure.
It is.
Okay, yeah. So beyond filtering false positives and identifying what's high risk and what's low risk and so on, Semgrep Assistant has a feature called memories. And in this way, Semgrep Assistant is actually learning through all of your triage decisions, through comments and notes that are added in kind of triage actions, through the developers labeling something as a false positive or not an issue or won't fix or what have you. And it's actually collecting these memories and applying them if you like. So if you're familiar with AI tools, some of the AI tools out there in the market have a similar concept where you can add a memory. This is part of ChatGPT and I think Claude as well, and I'm sure many others. And this allows in our case, this allows the system to learn more and more as about the environment as it runs and as you use it, so that any single manual triage decision will really like pay dividends in terms of ROI and in time saved in the future. And here, what we see are memories such as, these plain English descriptions of like when there's domain validation or input sanitization done before building a request, this SSRF rule might be flagging a false positive. And you'll see the other ones as well. And these all are suggested memories. We also have live ones here, which we can show in a second. And the suggested memory, Semgrep Assistant is also calculating, how many findings would be affected. So how many SSRF findings would be effective if we were to activate this memory. And in fact, one of our Fortune 500 customers eliminated 50% of their SSRF findings as false positives through a memory pretty similar to this one.
I love that. I love that. Now, I've heard a rumor that in beta, we've got Assistant reminding us of birthdays and anniversaries. Now, you don't have to tell me now if that's true, but just give me a nod or a head shake.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right.
Um, yeah, so this is not all of our AI technology. We have AI applied in other parts of the platform as well. But this is the kind of the newest iteration on how we can use AI to really accelerate development and save AppSec teams and developers tons of time. So one more thing about Semgrep code and about saving developers time before we move on to supply chain, and that is, what do the developers see? So we talked a lot about filtering out false positives and focusing on what matters and high risk things, and then, well, what happens when you filter out all those false positives? You're left with the true positives, things that you want to tackle, like those two issues that we showed earlier. Now, we are very, very conscious of the developer experience that we present to developers and enable AppSec teams to do so in a very thoughtful way. And this is an example of what a developer might see through Semgrep and Semgrep Assistant. So this is a finding that's shown here. And here it says like when data is coming from an untrusted source and put into a logger, attacker could force log entries or include malicious content. Now that's a finding from Semgrep code. We've identified the first party lines of code where this issue is being triggered, etc. But Semgrep Assistant not only thinks that it's a true positive, but is also showing the developer exactly how to remediate this issue. And not only is that shown through a suggested change, which they can just click to apply, but also there's a moment or an opportunity for educating the developer in security issues. We don't expect that developers are or will become security experts by any means, but this is a little bit of an opportunity for the AppSec team to guide developers into doing the right thing and kind of like why was this remediation kind of auto fix suggested in this way, well, you got to import this library, and then you got to sanitize the parameter before logging it, and then once you build the log line, you use it this way. So this is a pretty straightforward example, very illustrative of the power of just showing very relevant and actionable findings to developers.
We know that the relationship between AppSec teams and developers has always been tough, sometimes tougher than others. So we've tried to make it a very dev-friendly tool from the start, and we're definitely not getting worse at it. So we got that going for us.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I'm very very proud of the team that's been building this. I'm not a software developer myself, so I can sometimes just observe and admire in awe about that. Okay, let's keep things moving and move on to third-party code scanning through Semgrep supply chain. So I'll just go over here to my other tab. Actually, let me restart here, reset all the filters. So third-party code happens to be most of what is in applications today. And that means there's a huge surface area that needs to be secured. And like in the first view that we showed with Semgrep code, we can look at all of our, in this case, dependency vulnerability findings. And that's quite a big mountain, 3,300, almost 3,400 findings. Now, just like with other tools, we can filter out for, critical severity, important issues, etc. And we'll do that here as well. But SEMRIP really can reduce the noise tremendously by applying something called reachability. And reachability refers to the ability of SEMGREP code to not only detect if you have a dependency with a vulnerability in your environment or in your project, but can also detect if you are using the vulnerable parts of that dependency in a vulnerable way in your first party code. And that's what we are referring to when we talk about reachability. So I can untoggle these other ones, for example, and only look at the reachable findings and only look at the ones with critical severity. And then we've gone from roughly 3,500 to 27, to a couple dozen findings. And again, these are things that are really tractable and we can make progress on with security teams and developers.
I've got a quick question here, Pablo.
Yeah.
I know that supply chain has been around for a couple of years now. I mean, almost what, a year and a half or so. No, it was late 2022.
Yep.
Time is
Yeah,
weird, man.
exactly.
2.5 years. So we've got some good data on about how much we can reduce the vulnerability count. If you had to put it in the numbers, like percentage wise, how much of a reduction could we see by using reachability
Yeah. So,
analysis?
yeah, Randall, I think you were also part of SemGrep, like me when we launched SemGrep Supply Chain, and we did a lot of research to try to find this number, and we found it. We found that reachability reduces the noise by 98%. So
Ooh,
98% noise reduction, and we've found now that the product has been in the market for, like Randall said, 2.5 years, going on 3. We found that holds up pretty well to real world use cases all across many different types of enterprise and and also smaller company environments. So it really is a dramatic way to save time and for those uh, other issues that are not reachable, you can defer them, you can ignore them. Kind of depends on your internal policy how you handle them. But we definitely recommend, and our customers do really start with what's reachable.
I love that. And I was definitely around. I've got the pullover. It's one of
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite pullovers. And I remember the first time we heard about supply chain, and I remember the bad milk analogy that was given to those of us on the sales side to
Oh,
understand it
now I feel
better.
sick.
And then I remember 6 months later when we were asked to stop using the bad milk analogy to describe reachability.
Yeah, yeah, but sometimes the spoiled milk can really ruin one's day. Quickly touching on all those things that are unreachable. We can look at, for example, what are all the things that are being filtered out. I don't have to necessarily filter by critical severity here, but this also applies not only to direct dependencies but also to transitive dependencies. So these are examples of transitive dependencies that are unreachable, and the great thing about this is that this gives people peace of mind that a lot of those vulnerabilities which do happen to show up in transitive dependencies actually do not affect them because they are unreachable in their code. Okay, so again, similar to what we showed earlier with Semgrep code, once you filter out all the things that are not reachable or false positives in the case of Semgrep code, you're left with the things that do matter. And what do you do with those? Well, there is some great new stuff to show you here as well. This is an example of a reachable finding, and this happens to be a SQL injection example. And here there is the remediation steps to resolve this issue, and that is to upgrade the Django version from 3.2 to 3.2.13. And down here, we see the specific parts of your code that actually are calling the vulnerable part of Django in this case through one of these functions or methods, and that way you can very clearly see like why does this finding apply to your project. And that's also really helpful for developers because they can see, why is this a real issue? Why should I bother with this versus tackling, any one of the many tasks that I have to tackle today? And this really helps rebuild credibility in SCA tools because SCA tools are kind of known for producing a ton of noise. And a lot of the time that's because traditional SCA tools can't determine if you are using the vulnerable functions of a dependency in the vulnerable way in your first party code. All they can say is like, yeah, you have this dependency and it's associated with the vulnerability.
You have bad milk.
Yes. Yes. So here's how to save your milk. Here, Semgrep is also doing some analysis and has determined that this upgrade is safe to upgrade. And what this means is that the developer can actually bump. This is basically a version bump, upgrade from 3.2 to 3.13. And Semgrep has determined that this is going to be safe and smooth to upgrade. And from here, we can dispatch this as a ticket, or we can actually click to open a PR. And that makes it super easy for folks to, like triage and send off to developers with high confidence that these issues can be fixed. Now, in other cases, the remediation, the upgrade of a dependency is not going to be quite as straightforward. And in those cases, we can actually show, let me go see back here and see if I can give you another example here. In those cases, we can actually show what it is that is going to be required to do when the upgrade is to be performed. And Semgrep, this same analysis will be applied, and you as an AppSec team can share this information with developers. And here we have the example of what it looks like for the developer. And they can see that in this case, bumping Django from 3.2 to 3.2.13, this is going to be safe to upgrade because there are no breaking changes introduced. And then the developer has confidence that all of this will actually be pretty smooth to perform. Okay, I know we are running a little tight on time. Any questions out there from the audience before we go to the last part, which is around vibe coding? Oh, there is a question that just came in. How does breaking changes work? Yeah, so actually, Semgrep is looking at the differences between versions of the dependency that is currently used and the dependency that would resolve or remediate the vulnerability. And then it's analyzing all the functions or methods that have changed through the kind of like the dependencies API. Sometimes functions are changed, renamed, different parameters, sometimes deleted, etc. And in that way, we can actually like analyze, hey, these are the things that changed, and these are how this is how it's changed, and where in your code you're using those dependencies. This is an example of an upgrade that does introduce breaking changes. So this is WorkZoig. This is WorkZoig upgrading from 2.3.7 to 3.0.3. Semgrep has analyzed this change and has found out that there are breaking changes that would be introduced by performing this upgrade. And these are the two breaking changes. in this case, two parameters that have been removed. And these are the places in your code where you are using those functions that are changing. And there's also some things that are not changed with the upgrade, just so you know, and you have confidence in that. And then, just like in the case of Safe to Upgrade, we can also open a fixed PR here and send that off to a developer. There is already a link here because this was done last night. So let me just show you this. And this is kind of basically the equivalent view to what I just showed a moment ago, but instead of the very easy dependency version bump that we had before, now we're giving the developer specific guidance as to the things that changed. So those are the unchanged ones, and then these are the changed ones where these parameters are removed. And again, that link to the locations in first-party code where those changed functions are currently being used. A couple other questions. Is it possible to integrate with any software test platforms like Jira? Yes, we do have a Jira integration. There are some more challenging cases of, like dependencies of dependencies that should be patched. Can the tool efficiently work with those? That is typically more challenging because in those cases you have to kind of depend, not to overload the term here, your dependency, which has a child dependency that needs to be remediated, then that the first level dependency has to kind of like be upgraded to incorporate its resolved version, the resolved version of its child dependency. So we can identify vulnerabilities in transitive dependencies, but doing this kind of analysis is a little bit of a different case because in the case that Ivan is asking about, it's really the direct dependency that needs to be changed, not the first party code, right? And this is just a hypothetical example of kind of like one layer or one level. This can go a lot deeper than that. And so in those cases, people then look to see like what other mitigating factors they might be able to introduce to remediate or mitigate those. Yes, thank you, Randall. Um, yeah, we've heard that you like dependencies, so we've added more dependencies to your dependencies and their dependencies.
Dependency
Okay,
party.
yeah, yes. Let me go back to uh, or go over to, sorry, to cursor. So our last little bit here is around cursor and vibe coding. So uh, I am conscious of time. I want to make sure that we get through this part. So let me just show cursor 1 second. Actually, let me quickly introduce what is vibe coding, what is cursor, et cetera, in case we don't have. If in case not everyone is familiar with that. Vibe coding. What do we mean by vibe coding? In case you haven't heard of this, it's kind of a new term of art that has been coined recently and but February this year, and really refers to kind of writing software using AI tools with like instructing them with free flowing spoken language instead of like directly or intensely defining and writing the source code yourself. And so there's a kind of like a now well-known tweet about vibe coding, and this has opened up great possibilities in terms of developing software and writing software, and it's extremely exciting. One of our customers told me the other day, "I love vibe coding because it's gonna keep me employed forever." Because there are security implications with this. Um, so what are we going to show that's related to vibe coding? Well, I'm going to show you a quick demo in Cursor. Now, Cursor is an IDE, a development environment that's based on on VS Code, Visual Studio Code, and it basically adds AI-powered development on top of VS Code. That's kind of the summary. And then it has the ability to connect to tools through something called MCP, Model Context Protocol. And this is basically an emerging kind of standard that lets solutions like Semgrep provide its services to an LLM agent like Cursor. And the bottom line here is that you can use Cursor to vibe code, and you can do it securely because Semgrep is going to be watching over you and really protecting you and making sure that the vibe coded code is safe. So that's a quick introduction about vibe coding and MCP. And then let me go over to Cursor itself. So if you're familiar with VS Code, you'll probably kind of like at least recognize some of the UI, kind of Chrome here. And let me know if you can see that. I think you can.
Yep.
Okay. I have an empty project except for one thing, and that is I've added a rule for the Semgrep MCP kind of instance as part of this project. And the rule is very simple. It's whenever you generate code, scan it with Semgrep to ensure it's secure. That's it. You know, nothing more complicated. Obviously, plain English, you know, very easy to understand. And this is going to be applied always. You can, you know, you can apply it manually or you know, individually or whatnot. And then over here on the right, we have the chat interface. And this is where we're going to ask Cursor to do our stuff. So I actually have a prompt pre-written for this just so we don't have to watch me typing, you know, all these things. And we're going to build a quick web application. And the web application is basically going to be kind of a homepage for RSA. And we're going to have Cursor do it for us. So up here on the right side, I don't know if I can expand this, but here it says create a Flask app that displays Semgrep RSA 2025 with these following specifications. And it has some instructions about, you know, run it with in this way, you know, do this with CSS animation, add some beautiful things, etc. And we're going to send that over to Cursor. And it's like, great, we're gonna create this beautiful app and let's do it. And I think that many AI tools have this feature now where they will kind of show you what is going on in the background, sort of step by step, so you can follow along as to what's happening. And so here it's first creating the basic Flask structure, and then it's creating an HTML template, and then it's going to add some of the Python dependencies that are needed to run this whole thing. Oh, look, it's creating a README file so that, you know, people can know what this is about and know how to run it. And then it's scanning the code in Semgrep to ensure it's secure. And oh, it found an issue, and it's like, well, we're going to fix the issue. And we're going to modify the main file, app.py, to not run in debug mode by default. And you can kind of see a sort of diff view here. This is what's going to be removed, debug equals true, and instead it's going to be controlled by an environment variable. It's a little hard to see. Yeah, maybe that's a little better. And then it's going to call Semgrep again, and it's going to verify this security fix. And it's like, it's done. You know, I made this app. It's beautiful. You can run it. Well, I want to go a step further. Can you run the application for me? It says, okay, yeah, I'll help you run it. And then it's going into, you know, my system, and it's generating or activating the virtual environment, installing the dependencies. And oh, there's looks like there's an error. And let me see if I can give this the error. There is an error. And it, for some reason, the copy paste doesn't actually show up here in the UI, but it did capture the, you know, lines that I pasted. I think it's like, oh, seems like Flask wasn't properly installed. Let's try to fix this by explicitly activating the virtual environment. And it should be running now. And it says like, okay, go to your local host, you know, port 5000. So let me just take this. And I'm going to show you what we've got. So let me just switch over my screen again. And hopefully you can see the URL bar. That's localhost 5000. And that's the app. We didn't ask it to do anything more complicated than that, but it actually is using some CSS animations to do this. And that's it. We did this, and it's now secure. And if we wanted to deploy this, we could go off and deploy it.
I
So
feel
that is a
so
little
cheated
flavor of vibe
having
coding,
learned how to
clearly.
do this in school. You know,
Sorry,
I mean,
Randall?
where was this tech? I feel so cheated having learned all this in school, and now it's just a couple of prompts. What am I doing with my life?
Yeah, you know, so it's very exciting that kind of the possibilities it opens. It allowed me over the weekend to create a white noise machine with controls as to kind of the flavor of the white noise. I was doing this to get my baby to sleep a little bit better. And but I know a tiny bit of programming, but it was way easier to just ask. I used V0 actually from Vercel, to ask V0 to do it, and it worked. It wasn't quite how I envisioned it as a kind of like 1980s hi-fi stereo kind of UI, but it worked. Okay, so I think we are almost at the end of our presentation, but Randall, we have a few more things, don't we?
I think it's time to give away some hot sauce. What do you think?
Yeah.
To get this into the chat wins the exclusive Semgrep hot sauces. By what percentage can Semgrep's reachability analysis reduce noise? First correct answer gets the sauces.
We
Christopher
have a
Roper
winner.
gets it.
Yes. Nice. We
All
have some
right,
more, right,
Chris.
Randall?
That was the only one. This is one
Oh,
of
that's
the
the only one.
last batches,
Oh, that's
one of
right.
the
That is the
last sets of
last
the hot
batch.
sauce. Chris, I
All
am
right.
going to reach out to you to get an email address and we will rock and roll.
Awesome. Well, hope you enjoy that hot sauce. Um, Volkswagen hot sauce. Yes. Great. Um, well, for folks who are curious about what all is going on with SumGrep at RSA, we have a webpage that summarizes this and makes it easy to find all the info, sumgrep.dev/RSA. We'd love to meet any of you there. If you can make it, stop by the booth or stop by one of the other events that's listed on the page. Say hello. And if you did attend this webinar, we'd just say, hey, I was on the webinar. It's, you know, listening to Randall and Pablo, and we'd love to meet you and learn more about what you do.
Thank you all so much for joining today. Hope you had fun. Hope you're not tired of us. Hope you'll come and see us next week.
Thank you so much, Randall. Appreciate it. And thank you, Amanda, for your help as well.